All right, welcome back to another episode of the Lions God podcast. And once again, we got the man from the Do Hard Things podcast, my friend Jay Tiegs. And Jay, how you doing, my man?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. So,
Good.
so I got Jay back on because we've been talking, and I think I'm operating in the power twos right now. When I hear something a second time, I'm moving on it, right? And I think you were one of the two instances of hearing about Man's Search for Meaning, the book by Viktor Frankl, one of the top 10 influential books in America for a long time, right? It's written back in the 40s. And, I picked it up over the summer. I know that's one of your top recommendations. It's a really impactful book, a lot of powerful lessons in there. So we were chopping it up, talking about it. I was like, hey man, let's get on and talk about this thing and kind of, go through it. We'll do a little review of Man's Search for Meaning and, really your takeaways, my takeaways, and hopefully everyone can get some value out of some of, we're trying to share the wealth, I guess, is what we're after today. So, but before we jump into all that, Jay, for those who didn't listen to Lions Guide podcast episode 1, man, give us a little quick intro about yourself.
My name is Jay Tiegs. I am currently active duty military. I'm a captain in the United States Army. I've been in the Army for 25 years. A very old captain. I was enlisted for many years. So I am a transitioning veteran. I'll be retiring next year. Father of triplets, single father of triplets. Daughters, they just turned 13. I am the host of the Do Hard Things podcast. Endurance athlete. I'm a transformational mindset coach and a fellow certified high performance coach. That's how we met through Brendan Bouchard's teaching at the High Performance Academy. And that's as I transition, that's what I'm doing. I'm helping individuals, live a better life. And I think as we were just talking about this, I think my focus and my niche is going to be helping veterans and transitioning veterans find their next mission. And what I love about this book that we're going to be talking about, it is probably the book on the topic of clarity. Clarity, as you know, is one of the most important aspects of high performance. If you don't know who you are or where you're going or what you want, it's going to be very hard to live a fulfilling life and live a life that's congruent. It's going to be very hard to find your happiness. So I love the fact that and I'm honored that you invited me on to talk about this particular book, because I think it's, I didn't read it all that long ago, but it's easily top 3 book. It's probably one. I've got 2 books, this and The Slight Edge, that are just neck and neck. If I were to hand someone a book, it would either be this one or The Slight Edge. But a fantastic book and great opportunity to be here today.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do. And it was one of my goals with this podcast was to do reviews like this because, it's that, right? I find myself talking to people, clients, friends, family, whatever, about influential books. And like I say, I range between 40 and 60 books a year. So I got a whole freaking library of, asset, let's say. But the reason I want to start diving in these books on the podcast is so that when I talk to someone, because I'm saying the same thing every time, like read Man's Search for Meaning, read, 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson, like, all these great books that you hit the key word. And it's really why it became a key word in my philosophy, which is clarity, man. You get into these books, and like this book, it's written in the 40s, but the perspectives, the values are timeless. And so diving into these books like Man's Search for Meaning today, like one of my goals for this is so when it pops up in conversation, I go, hey man, go check out episode X with Jay Tiegs. We go through Man's Search for Meaning. There's some great value there, start there. And or go get the book and or both, whatever, go get it done. So I'm excited. I'm just excited to jump into
this is a fantastic book. And I like the idea of that. Sometimes I've got a whole list of books that are on my shelf I'm trying to get through. Sometimes you just need a very succinct version of this, and maybe it will compel someone to go actually pick up the book. And one of the things that I've learned is that there are so many books that have been written. So don't waste your time. There's so many wonderful books. Don't waste your time on books that all my books are recommended. They come highly recommended by people that I respect. That way, when I pick up a book, I'm never disappointed. When I watch a movie, oftentimes people are like, man, how do you watch the same movie over and over and over again? Well, I value my time and I like to know what I'm going to get. And I know, like, I could watch Band of Brothers over and over again, or Game of Thrones. I love those shows and those movies. With a book, I don't want to waste my time. So
yeah,
here's a book recommendation, and here's two people that absolutely love this book. And like you said, it's one of the top 10 most influential books by the Library of Congress. This is a profound, impactful book. And so,
I was going
yeah.
to ask that, and just because one of the things we talked about in the green room, if you will, before we hopped on here, was the habit of reading. And but what's your, just curious, what's your reading schedule like? When do you get your reading in?
I usually do it first thing in the morning. It's part of my morning routine. At a minimum, I shoot for 10 pages. I mentioned the book, The Slight Edge, which specifically talks. That's where I developed that habit. I picked up that book after a very long break from reading altogether, and in an effort to incorporate something positive into my life. Compelling case for, hey, if you just read 10 pages a day, by the end of the year, you'll have read at least 12 books. So I'm not on the pace of you reading, would you say 40 to 60 books?
Yeah,
I'm
depending on
probably
how long
more
it
like
is.
a 25 to 30. I get
Yeah,
about through 2 books per month, but at about 10, maybe 15 pages a day.
right.
But
Yeah,
I love starting my day off with a solid nugget of positive information. And so
it,
I wait for my pre workout or my caffeine to kick in, and I'm reading, and then I go get my workout done.
I think we're on the same page with that, because similarly, that's me. I'll get up. I've actually really adopted that habit of meditating, twice a day now. My minimum one a day is like, as soon as I get up, like, someone educated me on the acronym RPM, rise, P, meditate. So, because I was trying to meditate after my workouts, and someone who's actually, fluent in that spirituality and meditation space, I was talking to them about it. They're like, RPM. I was like, what's that? Like, rise, speed, meditate. So I've been getting up, meditating. Jody and I get together and do a coffee walk, or have our time or quality time. But then my next is my reading time. I read for about an hour a day, so depending on how our schedule's shaking out or what's going on, it's usually a minimum 45 minutes, and I'll go for an hour. I know my average is about 35 pages a day, and that's how I'm able to. But you're right, like all the important things in personal development, what I find at least is like it's got to get done in the morning. And even with all my clients, right, we'll be talking about change of habits, getting in the gym or getting reading in or whatever. And for the I guess I'll say the inexperience, they always go, yeah, after work or when I get home X or whatever. I'm like, do me a favor, let's start there, but let's quickly review if it's working or not, because you and I both know, right? It just doesn't work like that, man. The day robs you. So you got to take care of yourself first, because what happens the rest of the day is, as much as we plan and all that stuff, especially if you have kids and a family and other things, because I would say, like, back in the day in the Marine Corps, when it was just me and Jody and our roommate, I came home and I read every day. I 100% did that, but I got 3 kids now. I got other responsibilities. I
Yeah.
got to work. So if you guys are not a reader, but you're trying to be, and you want to stick with it, I would say find that time in the morning, like Jay does.
Yeah, it's got to be done first thing in the morning. It sets the foundation for the day. You start off the day on solid footing. I always think about like you get your fighter stance, right? Because the day,
Yeah,
as soon as as soon as the kids are up, and then as soon as you go to work and all the obligations, you got to be in that fighter stance. And I don't know if you've ever, you've been to like you do jiu-jitsu, right? You go into class, they're like, hey, just stand there, and they kind of push you over. But when you're in that fight stance, you got balance, right? So
yeah,
I think of my morning routine as like getting into my fighter stance for the day. It enables me
yeah,
to navigate the day so much better. And I'm not, you sound like you are probably more of an avid reader than I am and look forward to it. Reading for me has not always been natural. In fact, I didn't read for many, many years. And people that are new to the habit, what I often tell them is try to go for at least 10 pages, or just read until you get like a positive nugget, even if it's a page in and you just get a nugget. Hey, good enough. That's the intent, is to put something positive for you to ponder. And I think whatever that positive thing is, I'll think about that during my workout, and kind of like maybe it's the theme for the day. I'll post something on social media about it, which helps me reaffirm that, and I'll get a great conversation, as opposed to getting in an argument on the internet or posting something political, which is what I used to do.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, read intentionally, right? Like,
yeah.
read intentionally, geez, the infinite number of books out there, if you've got an issue, right? Or like, I mean, I guess the way I pick what to read is just like that. I'm in conversations, people say, here's book X, whatever. I go straight into Amazon. I've got a book list, and I just quickly add it to my list. And then every single month, I have a month close routine. I go ahead and lay out what I'm going to read the next month. And I'm a little bit, but it's how I need to do it if I want to stay consistent. But I literally sit down and go, okay, here's the next few books up on my list. What do I want to read? Is there anything that I truly am interested in solving for right now? And then I'll go do a quick inventory of how many pages they are. And knowing I read about 30 pages a day, I'll go through and lay out, hey, I can knock out these 3 or these 4 or these 5 books this month based on that average. So when I kick off my month, like I already have the books, I already know what I'm reading when. And maybe that's a little far, maybe it's not, because here's the reality. I'm very intentional about my reading, and I'm reading for value. Like, yeah, I bring that here, and that's my goal, but I'm not just reading to say I read. I'm not reading fictional stuff that's story stuff, but I'm reading with intention, with a game plan, and that allows me to execute. I think with all things, especially personal development wise, if you have a game plan, you're more likely to execute, right? So for me, reading, having a game plan keeps me consistent, and I enjoy it. I really do.
One of my favorite quotes is from Jim Mattis, and I'm probably going to kind of butcher this a little bit, but he basically says that if you don't read, you are functionally illiterate and you don't have the necessary tools for you to navigate life. I completely butchered that, but that's the bottom line of the quote. It's like he's known as the warrior monk, and he
Yeah.
talks about in his interviews, like every combat situation he found himself in, he had a frame of reference because history repeats itself. And
Yeah.
in personal development, like we were talking about this in the green room, like that there hasn't been anything, no new enlightenment in the realm of personal development, but the more knowledge and the more wisdom you have, it enables you to deal, and for me personally, detach my emotions. And that's ultimately one of the reasons that I got into reading about 8 years ago, and how it's fundamentally changed my life. It's because it's made me wiser. It's enabled me to detach my emotions. And now I always have a frame of reference with every problem that I run into, or if I run into someone that's dealing with something, I'm like, hey, why don't you check out this author and this book or this reading or this podcast or whatever. All of these, it's a tool, and wisdom is a tool that I took for granted. And I just wonder if I would have started reading earlier, how fundamentally different my life would be, because it's changed my life so much in the last 8 years.
Oh yeah, and it's and you said it key earlier, and again, I don't know if I finished the thought or not, but it is reading is why a big part of why clarity is a core value of the Lions Guide, right? Like clarity is key, man. And you want to get clarity, like start digging through books and problem solve, and just get these alternate. I don't even say alternate, but get these perspectives, because you're right. Like humans have been around for tens of thousands of years. Who knows, right? Our human existence, and I know we all want to have our ego and think our problems are ours, but our problems are everyone's. Like, everyone's got the same problems. Everyone's got their stuff. We say that. You and I probably both say this on both all our podcasts all the time. Everyone's got their shit, man. But in the ways to solve for these issues that we deal with of life, right? The suffering of life have been documented in many different varying ways, varying perspectives, the same information, just flanking from different angles, over and over again. And all the way back to the Bible, it too has a prescription, not to get all spiritual or even religious, but like it too, the lessons in the Bible are a lot of the same lessons that you're reading in your books today. They're just said a different way, they're delivered a different way. And I think that's great, because the more you hear the same things from different angles, like you're burning it in. You're really because you've got the forge, right? It's like you're forging your sword, right? You're just steadily hammering away. You're sharpening it from different angles. There's not one angle to get better, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. Getting that clarity, and it's great. I mean, it makes you feel good, getting that clarity out of these things.
Absolutely. The forge, applying heat and pressure to change something into something useful and better. And you do that by applying heat and pressure, right? And in life, that could be a form of suffering. It's doing those difficult things. And I think that's incredibly important, which is a big crux of this book. And you mentioned the Bible. The Bible is, it's a series of books. It's the ultimate personal development guide. Whether you believe Jesus is the Son of Man or just a Jewish philosopher, there's no doubt that book has had an impact on the world. And there's so many great nuggets and parables in there, whether you're a believer or not. There's just incredible wisdom in that book. And I'm a big fan of Stoicism. And this is, Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and all of these other Seneca, like incredible wisdom from that time period that is applicable today. It's incredible. And this is a book that, is from the 1940s with a lot of great wisdom, and it's very profound.
Yeah, and we'll turn to that here. But one point I want to make, because you brought it up, Marcus Aurelius Meditations. I remember that was one of James Mattis's, like, that's his everyday carry. He doesn't leave home without that book. He said, if I recall correctly, that that's his everyday carry, and he reflects on it often. So and those are thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So, Man's Search for Meaning. When was the first time you read this book?
I only read this book, I think it was maybe a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
maybe a year and a half, 18 months ago. And I wonder, like, how profoundly different would my life have been had I read this much sooner? I stumbled into this book. I'm a big fan of Tom Bilyeu, who
Yeah.
billionaire founder of Quest Nutrition, host of the Impact Theory podcast. I heard him speak at an event, and I didn't really know who he was at the time, but profoundly impacted me, his presence and just how he carried himself. And he mentioned he had a top 25, like, read these books in order. And I started working through his list, and it was book number 4.
Mm.
And so it was about 18 months ago.
Yeah, awesome. Have you just read it the one time, or did you kind of pick it back up since
I've
then?
read it twice, and it's a book that I thumb through and reference. It's in my reference book. I've got a note file on it. I have mentioned it has come up in my podcast. I'm like 30 episodes in, probably at least 15 or 20 different episodes. It has made its way to the surface in somehow or another. So it's profoundly impacted me.
Yeah, so let's jump in. Well, before we get into some of those impacts, I guess this summarize it, like, before we jump in and dig deeper into it, why should someone read this book? Why is someone going to even be interested in even what we're about to get into from your perspective?
From my perspective, I think he does a great job of boiling down what are the most important things in life and what are some focus areas of your life. What is the reason why you need to have a powerful why to gain clarity? Like you said, in high performance, the number one thing that we need is clarity. And this book is a great way to help you identify what's important, maybe to give someone some clarity. And no matter how bad you think that your life is, here is a compelling book that's like, you ain't got shit on what, it really, it's like, okay, you're depressed and you're feeling kind of bad. Well, let me
Yeah,
tell you about my life, And so you
yeah,
read this and you're like, wow. Like, when I picked this book up, it was so gripping and so harrowing. I couldn't put it down. At least the first, 3/4 of the book is about his story from death camp to death camp and how he survived. And it's so gripping that most people find themselves, they can't put the book down. It's one of those books. It's that powerful.
and I feel like that's because, like, it is so unbelievable, right? And the Holocaust is a whole other podcast, right? But to start reading that story and realize it's not a fictional story, like, this is his account of what he went through, what he saw people go through at Auschwitz. Do I say that right? Auschwitz.
Yeah, Auschwitz. Yeah.
So, man, and that's the part, like, if you want to experience the depth of human suffering, and even human evil, that's the part of this book, a reason to read it, to kind of really put things in perspective on really how good you got it, and why we need to keep history alive. This seems like there's so much trying to bury history, right, wrong, or different. These things happened, and we've got to reflect on it. We've got to learn from these things, and his account of what he went through, and and what his peers endured, and those who didn't make it, and why, which is what we'll dive into here, and the real lessons that he brought back from that. Man, it is such a powerful perspective, a journey that's an experience. It really is. It's hard to put down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. History repeats itself. This is not the only atrocity that's happened. It's probably the one that's the most documented and the most talked about. But
Sure.
as you know, as we're having this podcast today, we're looking at what's happening in Afghanistan right now with the Taliban running in as we're evacuating. And there's other parts of the world where there's atrocities happening in Africa and other, you know, other countries. Like genocide and these things happen over and over again. It's part of unfortunately, it's part of the human dynamic and the suffering of, and why do these things come about? And we need, I think knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And the more that we, study this and realize that it is there, maybe we can combat against it and minimize it. But
Yeah. I mean, I guess, you can, it's just the awareness, right? It's the clarity of the awareness of how slippery some slopes really are, and why it's important to not be willfully blind to things that happen because, again, they're slippery slopes. And, if you look at history and you need not look far, and I think to your point, this is, most documented because we have the power of technology, right? In human history, there's been plenty of atrocities, but this is recent, and we had so much technology during this time to document it, so we can actually get closer to it and analyze it more. And we're in the information age, right? So it's everywhere.
yeah, absolutely. So, and for those that aren't familiar, I had a conversation not long ago with someone. We watched. It was the first time that they seen a movie about the. I forgot which movie it was, but it was a Holocaust movie, and they were asking me like, "Is that real? Did that really happen like that?" Like, and we have a whole generation now. That I look at my kids. They don't understand these things, and they're watching what's going on in Afghanistan. It's a newer generation, and I think it's important to keep history alive. And this book does just that, but it also gives you a compelling reason. It's a great personal development book from
Yeah.
someone's absolute tragedy.
Yeah, yeah. And even, the book kicks off in the forward. One of the things I took away from it, the quote, talks, ironically, it talks about the power of books like right out of the gate. In the forward, it says, if a book has one passage, one idea with the power to change a person's life, that alone justifies reading it, rereading it, and finding a room for it on one's shelves. And that was a first highlight out of the gate. I'm like, yep. This is, and that's the thing with reading too, kind of to beat this reading reasons to read drum is like some of it's affirming. For me, I run into a lot of stuff. I'm trying to stay on a path. That's my mission is to stay on a path. And sometimes it's not just things that you learn, but things that you affirm, right? That you'll read something and go, yeah, thank you, because I wasn't sure if I was right there, or it just kind of articulates your thinking. Maybe you've not journaled a way of life or philosophy or something out, but then you find it in a book, you're like, yes, that's me. And it's kind of, it's that pat on the back, right? When someone's recommending something or there's some value there, it's kind of like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you talk about staying on the path, sometimes even as high performance coaches, like we find ourselves veering off the path, and reading enables me to kind of maybe pivot, or when I'm facing with something that I'm reeling with, it enables me to quickly pivot. That's one of the, going back to the case of, reading personal development and doing this work, when I find my emotions taking over, I can quickly pivot and get back on the path. I don't spend nearly as much time connected with whatever it is that I'm dealing with. So,
Yeah, it's your brain's muscle work. It's like a workout for your brain, and if you're working out the right way, consuming the right content, you're so yeah. So man's search for meaning. Just to summarize the book a little bit, because we're going to jump into a few of the bigger categorical, I guess, categorical lessons that we ran into throughout this book. But really, the three sources of meaning, right? So Viktor Frankl, through his experience of the Holocaust and the Holocaust camps, concentration camps, was he was a psychologist, doing a lot of study research. I think a professor as well. So he was eyes wide open on the human experience, of this tragedy. And he came away with this his findings and how he saw things happen. And really, he saw three possible sources for meaning in life, which was in work, which would be doing something significant, right? You're doing something that's providing value. You feel your value in what you do. You understand that. The second thing was in love, meaning that you're caring for another person. And the third one, which is, I feel like a major part of the book, for those who survived, in the reasons why some did and some didn't, which was in the courage during difficult times. And this was where, he really saw the ones that gave up hope, had nothing to live for. The way he described it, as I remember, it was like you could physically watch them decay. Like you could see when they lost hope because physically they were decaying. It was his words, I believe.
Yeah, he talked about, I remember he gave a date. It was like March 30th. And one of his fellow prisoners was like, we're going to get out of here. The war's going to be over by March 30th. We're going home. We're going home. And then as that date approached, like on the 29th, there was like no hope that the war was going to end. That individual got typhus. And he said, and they died from the typhus. And he's like, that person didn't die from typhus. They died from losing hope. Your immune system, your spirit, your emotion, like is all integrated together. And that individual completely lost hope and the will to live at that point in time and ultimately succumbed. The disease was there, but it ultimately succumbed to their own, inability to persevere any longer. Like they just gave up hope. Like, and
He hit that, pretty strong, because it was like the prisoners who were setting that date, they were saying, we'll be, because I remember they were talking about, I think, Christmas at one point. They were saying, it's going to be Christmas, we're going to be out of here. But those who like hung their hat on that, like that was their end game, and that end game came and passed. That was it. Like, and that was where I felt, brought it around, like those who were committed to surviving the experience, period. Like their goal was to survive the experience. Those were the ones to survive, but the ones that hung their hat on that end game, I think he called it the time experience. They were having, a lot of, challenges around, I guess, the, losing hope so drastically because they just were picked the wrong end game.
Yeah. And kind of going back to connection, one of the things that enabled him to have hope, he didn't know whether or not his wife was alive, but just the thought of her being alive gave him hope. Like one day he'll be reunited with her, and it gave him the fuel to continue to persevere through these deplorable situation when he had no end in sight, didn't know when it was going to end. And he goes in great detail about talking about his wife and that hope that he had. I think about my experiences like deployed. I deployed to Iraq in 2003, and especially very early on in the deployment, like we didn't know if we were going home or when that would be, because at that point, like timelines were extended and we didn't have, like, everything was stripped away from us. All we had was the food that was given to us. We were in these very difficult situations. I mean, there were points in time I didn't have a shower for like 30 days. We were like looking for water, like water. I mean, just basic human needs weren't really being met. But one of the things that we absolutely looked forward to was receiving letters from our significant others and our loved ones in general, and having the hope that one day we would be reunited. Like at the end of this shitty deployment, like we're going to go home and be with, those that love us. And for those soldiers that got that Dear John letter, in the Army, we always say, Jody's got your girl back home.
Yeah.
It was, psychologically detrimental to them because at that they lost their hope. They're in this bad situation. And the one thing that they pinned their hope on and that connection that they had is now gone. That really, really affected their ability to show up in how they performed and really rattled them. And that it's a common thing that happens, unfortunately, in service. But it's that's what, when I read that, that was one of the things that that reminded me. Always wonderful to get that perfume, like, that letter. I don't. Do people even do that anymore? They write letters and they spray the perfume and put the lipstick on it. It was great, and the guys would be like, "Yeah, my girl just wrote me, and here's some photos," and like, "Man, she's cute." All those things. I cherish those moments. He didn't even have that. He was in this deplorable situation where he talked about he didn't get any letters or anything like that, but he had visions of his wife and that love for her, and he knew that he would be reconnected with her, and that gave him the desire to continue on.
Yeah, no, and that's the love aspect of it, right? That was his. He had to get through this to get back to her. Whether he didn't know the truth of her situation, but he knew he had to get through this for that. And in his situation, he knew he wanted to get through this too. At one point in the book, he talks about visualizing, giving a lecture to college students about the psychology of the concentration camp. Right? His vision for the future was through this. It wasn't, this is going to end. He was going to get through it. That was his vision. And that was the difference, right? There wasn't a fabricated end date in his head. It was, I'm going to get through this to do X, right? There wasn't a mark on the calendar. And that was the difference of many who made it and didn't make it, in one perspective on the book. And before we run on that topic, you made me, so fun side note, boot camp, two things. One, my now wife, high school sweetheart, while I was in Marine Corps boot camp, name is Jody. So I'm getting letters on mail call from Jody, so that's always fun because the DIs
That's
are
a Marine Corps thing. That's a Marine Corps thing too. Jody's got your girl back home.
Oh yeah. So I was getting clowned in a lot of ways on that alone. But so one day, so we did mail call, I believe on Sundays, sitting on our foot lockers, and the DI was, I think it was Sergeant. His name was Sergeant Pierce. Infantry sniper guy, I believe even. Anyway, he's got the crazy drill instructor voice, and he's like one calling out mail call, whatever. And as he's pulling out the mail, I see all the white envelopes. But as he's going down, I see this big, like, face-sized postcard, which was like a pair of lips. And as I'm watching him count down, like, all of us are looking around like, oh, somebody's going to get it. Like, look, the eyes are looking for something. Someone's going to get it. And then he gets to this big pair of lips postcard, and he flips over, looks at it, and, being kind of animated about it. And he reads it, he picks his head up. He's like, where you at, Walls? I was like, oh, shit. So he drags me up on the quarterdeck, and I was doing what he did. He put the postcard in front of me, and I had to do push-ups and kiss the lips, whatever. He's like, oh, you like the lips, huh? Recruit Walls, and I'm up there pushing, kissing those lips. My wife and I joke about that all the time.
Oh, that's so funny.
So, anyways, back to the book, as Jocko Willink would say. And another SEAL that tells the story. David Goggins, he's got his whole thing about taking souls, but one of the instances he talks about that was, this hope factor when at Buds, the instructors would take the trainees on a run or whatever, and they would be on like a normal run, and they would be getting all excited when they were coming towards the end point, but the instructors would pick up on that excitement and run right on by it. And and Goggins would talk about, like, you would hear them just shut down. You would hear them all get quiet. And that's what and one of the things I listened to, we were talking about music before we hopped on here. Like, I actually don't listen to music when I'm working out anymore. I listen to YouTube motivational compilations that are all like geared out. It gets me fired up. But one of them, he's like, yeah, we're going to the end point and everyone's getting excited, but the asshole instructors, they hear that. So we keep on running and they all shut down. And that's when then they're giving up and I'm taking souls, and it's like, yeah, man, that's true. I mean, you hit that end point and it doesn't end. It's so disheartening. So disheartening.
Yeah. When I was the commander of EBOLIC, so it's the Engineer Basic Officer Leadership course, we'd have anywhere between 500 to 700 students. And it's every engineer officer in the engineer regiment comes through this course. It's almost like their basic training. It's all these lieutenants from their commissioning source. And we would always have these organizational runs at post or whatever. So we'd meet up at our company area. we would run over to where the battalion would meet up, and then we'd run over to where the whole formation would. And by the end of it, probably by the end of the run and everything, they're probably about 6 miles in, and then we run back to the company. And I'm pretty fast. I've always been a pretty fast runner, so I'd pick up the pace a little bit, and just kind of like, hey, because we've been doing this really slow motivational run. Let's pick it up and get back. So I'll have the kind of the formation strung out. And then when we get close to the company, we kind of get everyone back up. I have my cadre like getting everyone motivated. We're singing cadence. And then I just continue to run past the company. And immediately, we're not even running that fast. All these lieutenants start straddling out and quitting,
Yeah.
And there's a big ass hill, and I would take them up to the top of the hill and then come back down, get them back around the company, and have my cadre like really get after them. But then I would bring everyone in and like, hey, that was what I just did was an exercise in mindset and grit. Like, it's not over. And you as a leader, as officers, I expect just a little bit more from you, but you cannot fall out and quit on your soldiers. Like, you as a leader have to be able to mentally persevere and push through, because
Yeah.
if not, like, everyone in your formation is going to take lead from that. And so that was always a little mental trick, and man, they hated me for that. But it was a valuable exercise. And like, hey, when you think that you don't have enough, like, you have a little bit more in the tank.
Yeah.
And that it's mindset. It's all mindset. Just being able to push through.
Yeah. No, the importance of the end game. The end game
Yeah.
is not a point, it's completion, right?
Yeah.
Another Goggins thing says all the time. Goggins is burnt into my brain, man. And I try not to listen to him before I'm going to release content because, it just kind of comes out. I mimic him a little bit. But, it's like you don't stop when you're tired. You stop when you're done, just it's a great motto. It's the goal is to finish. The goal is to complete. The goal is to get through it. It's not a certain point. So, another point that the area, so the third, sources of meaning, just talking about the courage through difficult times. There was a couple of great quotes I felt that were there, around that. The other one, we talked about it being the meaning in life is the courage to the courage in difficult times. And then it hit on a couple other areas, and, being a core value alliance guy, I wanted to get there. It's like just talking about, suffering, the courage to endure the suffering. And one of the quotes, from the book was like, taking and transforming a personal tragedy into a triumph, and to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. Right. And that's, that's a bit about the courage to go through it, the courage to, face it. And instead of, falling out, right? Like, I guess even like a little bit to this perspective of your lieutenants falling out, like the courage to push through it, and that willpower and things like that. But and again, I guess we'll make this a pseudo Goggins, because I did think about Goggins a lot of this, because he talks about suffering, and he's a great, was it Roger Bannister of our time, showing like how far a human can go, the 4-minute mile guy, right? To me, Goggins is that for our times, like showing you how far you can really go. And, he talks about this in his book, another great book, Can't Hurt Me, another great recommendation to see, to go through a tragic circumstance. But his thing in his story, which I love, was he was looking at a circumstance, especially when he was trying to join the Navy SEALs, going, what if I became a Navy SEAL? Like, he was over 300 pounds. He had to lose 105 pounds in 3 or 4 months or whatever to even be accepted. But his mindset was like, what if I take my crappy story, my father beat me, I was, victim of racism, living in the upper Midwest. What if I became a Navy SEAL? What if, and that's kind of what this quote reminded me of, was like taking a personal tragedy and turn it into a triumph. I thought it was a really, there's many examples of that we see, especially of motivational speakers and these inspirational stories we see. It are examples of people that are saying they take their personal tragedies and bring value to the world as a result of it.
Yeah, what I appreciate about this book is that he talks about suffering and hardship is relevant to everyone. It's part of the human experience. Oftentimes, I think that people gravitate toward comfort and leisure, thinking that they're going to find happiness there. So they create this very comfortable life. What they find is that they're never really quite satisfied,
Yeah.
or when hardship does make its way into your life, because it will, they're not resilient enough to adequately deal with it. And so basically what his argument is that, if there's meaning at all in life, then there must be meaning in suffering, because it's just a part of the human experience. Everyone has suffering. And everyone, it's different for everyone. It could be emotional, spiritual, it could be like physical. But he says, without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete, because it's a part of us. So many people, and I think that's one of the dichotomies of the abundant world that we live in, is that there's so much comfort
Yeah.
and there's so much distraction from the difficult thing, that some people get so wrapped up into that and they gravitate toward that a little bit too much, indulge in things a little bit too much. And when these difficult things do make their way in their life, they just do not have the emotional, spiritual, or physical capacity to navigate that effectively. And that's why I constantly put myself in a controlled environment of being uncomfortable. Doing difficult things has been the handrail of my success. And I continue to do so to this day. One of the recent things I started doing, I actually did it this morning for the first time, like wake up immediately. I started incorporating cold showers, part of 75 Hard. But I was listening to Tony Robbins, who talks about hopping into his plunge tank, which is like 57 degrees, to change his physiology.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I did that first thing this morning. I woke up, I'm like, okay, RPM, I'm going to RPSM, and just take a shower and put it on cold. It changed my physiology to wake me up. But
Oh yeah.
when I do that, not only do I wake myself up, but man, it makes me grateful for that warm cup of coffee, that warm towel. It reminds me of the times when I was deployed. And I remember being in Iraq in the wintertime. When we did start having showers on a regular basis, it was like this fire truck that came in and gave us water like 3 times a week, but it was always cold. We had a very small hot water tank and hundreds of soldiers, so the shower was always cold. But it just makes me grateful that, hey, I can turn the hot water on when I want to. I can get a hot cup of coffee. It enables me to have more gratitude for things
Yeah.
in life that oftentimes we take for granted.
It is. And right, one of the things that we coach people on is energy energizers, right? Which is one of the things we teach and promote, is like having a gratitude journal where you are, showing gratitude for various things, whatever they may be, especially if it's other people, like showing and demonstrating gratitude for others. It's I was working with a client yesterday and we were talking about that. I was like, the power of it, you think it's unidirectional, right? The power, like telling someone, hey man, I really appreciate how you did that for me, or I really appreciate how you show up, or, demonstrating some gratitude. But I told him, I said, put yourself in the receiving end of that, right? And imagine how you're making them feel. And I told him, it's like Christmas, when you give someone a gift and they open it and they light up and you feel good, because you're thinking of them. You've made someone's Christmas, whatever. And that's like the power of gratitude as well. Just that, it's yes, being showing gratitude for appreciation for what we've got, because we've got it really freaking easy, all things considered, compared to some dire circumstances out there. But, living a life of gratitude is really a big energizer. You're suffering with your energy a little bit, start thinking a little bit more intentionally about showing and demonstrating some gratitude.
Absolutely. I mean, as we're talking about this, just like about a week ago, we're watching the events unfold in Afghanistan, where they're literally people clinging to a C-17 Globemaster that's taxiing on the runway.
Yeah.
The aircraft takes off. These
Yeah.
people they're so desperate to get out of the situation that they would give anything. You're like, your worst day would be a
Yeah.
dream to them. And
Yeah.
that's one of the it's one of the paradoxes of being in Western society. The things that I scroll through social media and the things that people complain about. It's like, oh my God, like I cannot, like, I wish more Americans would travel abroad and see how good that they have it and have more gratitude. And it's so frustrating to see that. And so, not to go off on a tangent there, but that's just one thing that just kind of popped in my mind. The images is still, there's a lot of emotion around that right now about gratitude and suffering. And there's so many people suffering, and people forget how good they have it.
Well,
That's
they
why
take it
that's
for
the
granted,
importance of
right?
it.
They
Yep.
take it for granted, and you. I guess the other part of it is I wouldn't underestimate how fragile our comfort really is. We take for granted a lot, like our electricity, even our plumbing, right? Like what happened down in Texas earlier this year, where this cold snap comes through, and it's freezing for a day or two, whatever it was, but pipes were busting all over the place. There was so much effect for something that we take for granted, such as modern plumbing, getting our water, that,
Oh,
so the point of that is like, don't take it for granted, man. Like, and don't forget about how fragile, our ability to have electricity, the internet. I mean, look how much dependency we have on the internet. And how is your day in your house or at your job when that freaking internet's down? And I'm gonna tell you right now, you're only one car accident on the street away from your internet being down for a day, and because it's just that easy. Snap that fiber line, it's a
yeah.
problem, and it's got a big trickle effect, and I don't think and that's just the stupid internet. Like, so it's,
I think COVID's demonstrated a lot of
yeah,
weaknesses in our supply chain, right? You go down
yeah,
there. I remember when COVID first kicked off, you couldn't get toilet paper. Everyone's freaking out about, what they're going to wipe their bum with. And then we're still having, it's been over a year now. We're still having logistical issues. I have a Forerunner. I noticed that most of the car dealerships, they don't have any cars right now because of the microchips. They can't process them.
yeah.
My car is 3 years old. My Forerunner is 3 years old, and I could sell it now for what I paid for it 3 years ago. It's incredible to me, and it just so quickly things can absolutely change on a dime. And so, to your point, everything can change.
Yeah, and I guess
Take for
on
granted.
that point of courage, like another quote I had picked up from that was, a point that he made was like, man is not fully conditioned and determined, but rather determines himself whether he gives in to conditions or stands up to them. In other words, man is ultimately self-determining. Man does not simply exist, but always decides what his existence will be, what he will become in the next moment. And it was a big statement to me about kind of what we're talking about, right? Like that cliche that you hear. It's like, it's not about what happens to you, it's how you react to it, and all, and how powerful that mindset is. And I thought this was a great kind of call out to, we're not animals are birth. He actually touches on this as well. Like, animals are born with instinct. At some point in our evolution, we lost this instinct, and we're not like predetermined, right? We're not pre-programmed away, and born with some of those instincts. But what we do have is the capability to control our reactions. And that, this point here about, not being fully conditioned, but you condition yourself, and how you give into conditions or how you stand up to them. And I thought it was just a really powerful statement around, how you carry yourself, how you face, and how you can utilize courage in your life and the challenges that behold us.
Yeah, we get to choose our attitude and how we approach things. And for me, I have to be very careful of this because I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And if I'm not happy about something, you can usually tell on how I approach things. And there are times it's one of the things that I love about doing endurance events, especially like team oriented stuff like adventure races where you have like a team of people. Once you start getting hungry and you start getting tired and things start getting really miserable, that's when true personalities really, really come out,
Yeah.
That's why, in the military, we train so hard. We train for multiple days. We try to put that stress. First day is always going to be pretty easy. Everyone's pretty happy. Everyone's got their energy. Everything's clean, everything. But as the days grow on and you get sleep deprivation, you're not getting, three hots in a cot. And that's when personalities really, really come out. And for me, putting myself in those positions have helped me because I can get very irritable. And as a leader, that's not good, right? So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I've worked on and I've gotten really much better at this. Like when I put myself in these long endurance events, I will focus in on. I've had moments where in a big bike race, I'll throw my bike and have my little hissy fit and like F this, F the world, what am I doing? I haven't had that in a while. I've had those thoughts, but I've been able to detach that, like to not have my little hissy fit, you
Yeah.
know, to because I want to sharpen that. I want to be better as a leader. I need to be better than that. And sometimes you're not always going to be on your A game, but when you're faced with these situations where, it's kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when a lot of these needs are stripped away, it really affects your emotion and how you show up to it. And in those moments where you're not feeling good, you're feeling very irritable, you're uncomfortable, are you going to show up in a positive way? Because I tell you, when you're experiencing misery and you've got someone that's just complaining about it the whole time, it will bring the morale of the whole team down.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to having a positive outlook, like, "Hey guys, I know this sucks, but and try to motivate them. Let's have a positive outlook. We're all suffering together. You'll have a much better experience to get through it."
Yeah, yeah. It only takes right. It only takes that one to start planting those seeds of doubt, the seeds of negativity, and those seeds start to grow and infest. Like a freaking weed in a garden, man. Once it takes root and starts going, it's hard to pluck out. And the longer it takes to pluck out, the harder it is, I guess. So it's best to avoid it. A couple other things like this, another area, I felt theme, I was finding throughout the book was just this, on the topic of freedom, and it was freedom of mind, the freedom, because, I felt like through his experience of the concentration camp, he was talking about like no matter what the guards did to him and the SS, like they could never take away what was between his 2 years, man. Like they could not take away, like, and he was, he owned that. That was the one thing that they couldn't get their hands on. Sure, they weren't giving him food and they were, they had slave labor and all these things, but they could not take away, his experiences. And that was like the quote I had highlighted from that. It says, "Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation." It's just the freedom of control and mindset. And I thought that was a really really powerful item there.
Yeah, it goes back to having the control over your mind, really. Having, are you going to let your emotions just, consume you? So many people, we got two parts of the mind. We got the emotional brain, we got logic brain, and so many people let their emotions just take over. But that's one of the things I appreciate about the study of Stoicism is that, hey, acknowledge your emotions. They're there for a reason. It's
Yeah.
survival instinct for whatever reason. There's some physiological things happening, heightened sense of awareness to deal with it. But the ability to detach from it and continue to maneuver forward and make logical decisions and endure and suffer as need be to get through that instance, because so many people let their emotions get the better of them. And I think that's a mistake. And I think in the topic of leadership, I think it's why Stoicism has been it's really enhanced my leadership ability as an officer, because oftentimes there are situations that come up and I can't let my emotions fly off the
Yeah.
handle. I may not like the situation that I'm in. I may not like the order that was given to me. I may not like a myriad of things. Maybe I don't have all the resources that I need and it seems like an overwhelming task. But as a leader, I can't let that show, right? I got to detach my emotion from it and like look for the positive, because everyone else is going to feed off of me if I make a brash decision or a comment or let it get to the better of me. And that is difficult to do. That's something that takes practice.
And again, like we talked about earlier, like training your mindsets, like training your muscles, man. Like, and to your point earlier you made about being an endurance athlete, like you're taking yourself to depths that, when you run into other pseudo difficult situations, you can always reach back and go, man, I've been in worse spots. I ran 50 miles. What I got to hike, I got to hump 3, whatever the case may be. Like you've got those things. And that was another, quote that I had highlighted and put in this freedom category was, this quote, he said, what you have experienced, I'll say in life, but what you have experienced, no power on earth can take that from you. Right. Your knowledge, your experience, like there's no power on earth that can take that from you. And I guess that a couple of things there, like knowing that, and getting out and experiencing more, that's the real goal of life, right? Is getting out there and experiencing more, not staying, one trick pony and doing the same things all the time. Go experience other things and, expand your reach, and challenge yourself, in that regard. I think it really serves you.
One of my favorite Chinese, I think it's a Chinese proverb, is I'd rather be the warrior in the garden than the gardener in the war.
Yeah.
And it's really essentially being prepared physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I continue to train. Like I could do, like a couple weekends ago, I did the Steamboat 142. It's a 140-mile bike race up in the mountains of Colorado. I could have easily stayed home and just binge watched, saved a bunch of money, stayed home, binge watched some Netflix, or go out to the winery and drink wine and beer or do whatever. But I put myself in these positions to see how far I can push myself. And I guess just prepare, just a constant state of preparedness for whatever. Because I know that it's exercising my mind, my body, my spirit. Because man, people are like, why do you do this to yourself all the time? You don't have to do this. And I question myself at the end of the race, like, why am I doing this to myself? And then I go up and sign up for something else right afterwards. But it's for that, because I just want to push myself as a reminder of what the body and the mind can do in the event that I need to do that.
It's the whole training for life thing, and it's the other part of that is I was actually, I won't say I was in my head about it this morning, but I've got my three projects I'm hyper focused on right now, but I do make it a habit to maintain every single day. I maintain. It's that saying, like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready, because I know. And I guess I say this for those of you out there who like take those days off or take that week off and stuff like that, is it's hard to get back. Once you once you take that week off, that weekend on the couch, those binge dates and all that stuff, especially if you do it for a longer period of time. I mean, my personal general rule, and I'm not a, check with your doctor or your fitness advisor or whatever, but I feel like, man, once if you go more than 2 weeks, not staying on routine or some sort of maintenance mode, you're in danger zone, because you're going to start, you know, shoveling onto the hill that you got to climb to get back up where you were.
Yeah. I also coach in health and wellness as a running coach, and I've just done some health and wellness coaching. I'm a big advocate of, you train every day. Some of your training days might be active recovery, because recovery is training, and active recovery could be a walk, could be yoga. I know we both just recently did 75 hard. You
Yeah.
can't do 2 hit workouts every day or run twice a day for 75. You're going to hurt yourself, right?
Yeah.
But the habit of just having that time block to go for a walk or just do some active recovery stretching, you're still maintaining that routine and that rhythm. I don't think some people can do it, but that whole notion of exercise 3 times a week, the people that tend to do it regularly, like make it every day, at least 6 days a week, maybe one day your rest day or whatever, tend to stick with it more than the people that just do it a handful of times a day. Because life is going to happen. Things are going to come up in the way. Like you said, you push it off till the end of the day, it's just not going to happen. You got to make that part of your daily battle rhythm, daily routine.
And we talked about it earlier. I guess a coaching point is, the need to get up earlier. If you're choosing a life of growth, and personal development, the need to get up earlier. And the same thing applies there. When I'm coaching folks to get up earlier, maximize their efficiency, their day. Obviously, get the right amount of sleep, but get the most out of your day. Usually means you got to get up earlier. But just like you said with the exercise, like, you've got to be consistent. If you're Monday through Friday, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m., but I'm going to sleep until 10 or 11 on Saturday and Sunday. Monday is going to be a tough day at the office trying to get back on that 5 o'clock run.
Yeah. I say a day here and there. If your body needs it, it'll tell you. But if you make that a routine, it's just not good for you. It's not good. And you got to get after it. It's having a disciplined lifestyle, right? It's having
Yeah.
a disciplined lifestyle of doing that hard thing every day, that difficult, that little bit of suffering every day. That's one thing I like about exercising. If you're doing it right, even if you're doing yoga, like I've been doing yoga with my daughters the last few days, there are some uncomfortable stretches. That's what's great about yoga, is that I'm not getting my heart rate up. I'm not slinging weights out. That's a different level of discomfort. But even stretching, like it's that. One of my favorite quotes about yoga is, it's a martial art you do against yourself. It's just, you're still suffering, right? A little bit. And I appreciate that. And I think that's important to continue to have that daily hardship as a reminder.
Sure. martial art you do against yourself. That's hilarious. The
Yeah, there's a MMA fighter that said that, but I think I'm kicking my own ass and downward dog, or what my daughter said this morning. It was upward corn dog or something like that.
Dude, why is downward dog so hard? Like, and I guess maybe like working out and doing upper body, like my shoulders are already tired, but man, like I'll be doing a yoga thing and I'm like, can we get out of downward dog already? Like my shoulders are like, I'm like, this is so stupid. Like I'm ready to tap out just by holding my butt up in the air. Like, I mean, is this what we're saying here? Like, come on,
Yeah.
man. But yeah, but it's good. But back to the point about like being, going out there and living more, like getting more of these experiences. Like yoga is one of those things. Like I've been doing yoga since COVID. Because COVID I couldn't go to the gym anymore, so I started really, consuming our Peloton membership, and yoga's on there. I was like, yeah, man, I need to get more flexible. That was my intention was for jujitsu because I'm not flexible. I don't stretch the way I needed to at the time. So I was like, I'm going to start doing yoga, go get more flexible, improve my jujitsu game. But I've had various unsolvable, quote unquote, injuries. My shoulder was really like locked up and whatever. And and something else I don't recall at this very second. But it was a problem. But I had been to doctors. They couldn't tell me what was wrong. Thankfully, none of them threw me under the knife just because they could charge me for it, because medicine is a business, guys. Just don't forget that, right? Medicine is the business. Get that second opinion before you just start running under knives and all that stuff. But anyways, I'm doing yoga and like you said, funky, crazy stretches. And so I get in this one position and I'm like, whoa, I just exactly where I've been having all these shoulder problems, literally for years. It started to release. Like, and what was really wrong with me was not an injured shoulder. And thankfully I had good doctors that truly couldn't find something. So didn't just go for anything. But what it really was in my head was I had a seized up muscle in my back. But just by having the courage to go try yoga, despite judgment or my avoidance of it, because it's not considered a manly thing or whatever, that kind of like perception of it, but choosing to do it actually solved for a problem I've been having for years that no one else could. So now I know what stretch I do it regularly, and I don't have that shoulder problem anymore. It is literally gone away. So it's just the power of just saying yes to experience new things and then decide if you like it or don't like it. Don't presume something doesn't have value or isn't going to serve you. And
Yeah, don't
that's what
judge the
yoga did
book
for
by
me.
its cover. Yeah, don't
Don't
judge that
judge.
book by its cover. Because we're both military guys, and like, yeah, yoga, that's the exact same. But I committed to doing yoga last year as part of my second workout. I couldn't run distance over like a half marathon. I unlocked myself by doing the yoga. I had a lot of hip tension and flexibility issues. I was able to run 350Ks, and now I'm training for another one this year specifically because of the yoga. So,
Yeah.
uh, doing hard, ridiculous things.
Martial arts against yourself.
Yeah.
So another topic area from the book was the importance of vision. Having a vision, and there's some areas there on that. Another we touched on some of it. Around that end game. And the part about the quote that I highlighted here was, about like there, he said there was an opportunity and a challenge, right? They saw their imprisonment as a challenge, and one could make a victory of those experiences and turning life into that inner triumph, like we talked about earlier, or one could ignore the challenge and simply vegetate as did a majority of the prisoners. And these were the ones that chose to vegetate instead of rising to the occasion. These were the ones that ultimately perished. So it was again that vision, having that vision of completion, and that was what he said was like the real reason for those folks' deaths were truly just giving up hope. I thought that was just some more quotes around that area, and we touched on a little bit earlier, but on my list were that they were, just beating that dead horse, if you will, around like just having hope, having a vision, beyond the circumstance.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I just started thinking about, this is a much toned down version of that, but I think about COVID and how it's affected people staying home and their resiliency in dealing with all the issues surrounding COVID and how some people have used it as an opportunity to thrive. They have a more optimistic future, and how can they use this opportunity to better themselves? Or did you pack on the COVID 19 pounds because
Uh,
you've just vegged out, binge watched everything on Netflix, searched to the end of the internet, argued with idiots, you know, used it in a negative way.
yeah.
And you can tell the people that are thriving right now and how they've approached this situation versus those that have had this negative outlook and impact, and so, yes, the book is definitely extreme, but in current times, so many of us, as you're listening to this, are still struggling with this issue right now. And the Delta variant, is on the rise, and I know that we're back wearing masks again, doing teleworking at work again, and it's a challenge for a lot of people. But are you using this as an opportunity to grow, or are you complaining and just taking the path of comfort and not using this opportunity?
I mean, and it is that, right? And look, I agree. Like if you take a little bit of that concept of that end game, and look, where do we start with COVID? It was like, oh, in 2 weeks we'll be back to normal. Like those same things where we were talking about, like that pointed end game that doesn't come, versus saying, how am I going to endure this? Right? Like COVID is, I can't control when COVID is or isn't. So, what are my goals and objectives, and how am I going to endure and accomplish those despite COVID, as opposed to that mindset of just putting everything on hold until COVID's over?
Yeah.
Man, bro, that's not going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
because we've been looking for that end game for now, the last 18 months. We've been looking for when things get back to normal, and man, look, COVID is an obstacle between you and your goals, and whatever that is, and you've got to start flanking. You've got to start maneuvering around COVID to get your goals accomplished, rather than just parking it or hitting pause. Look, time is your biggest asset. We can't, you know, that's not serving you. The once COVID's over, COVID in that case, when people give that, well, once COVID's over, I'm going to X. Like, dude, you just packed another tool in your excuse belt, man. COVID's your new excuse. What was it before that? Like, and don't let COVID be an excuse. Let it, like you said, let it be your opportunity.
Yeah. Humans are so resistant to change. And, I think the more resilient you are, the more you adapt to change and you realize that change is just part of the human dynamic. We're trying to control things that we can't control. When you're trying to control things that you can't control, you're going to feel feelings of frustration, anger, all of the negative emotions because you're trying to control something you have no control over.
Yeah,
So, trying to view something through a different lens is not easy to do. It is easier when you read and you have more points of wisdom and you have, that those tools in your belt to look at, hey, what are the opportunities here that are available? This is going to, like, in the business sense, like, this is really going to stress a lot of businesses, and you're going to find out, what the weak businesses are already collapsing, and
yeah,
then how are some businesses are already pivoting because this is the new norm, or at least it's going to be the new norm for the unforeseen future. But you can wring your hands and get pissed off and yell at the TV and just wait this thing out. But I don't think that's serving you. I think this is an opportunity. Like, what are the opportunities and what's it costing you by not seizing those opportunities? How can you
yeah,
get better from this situation? And you're absolutely right. We've probably thought that this thing was going to blow over much quicker than it has, but it's been far more complicated, and it's not going anywhere. As of this podcast, I don't see an end state anytime soon.
right. So
Yeah,
to kind of, again, this is a very lighter circumstance compared to that, but don't be that prisoner that was waiting for Christmas to come. When we're all going to
yeah,
be released. As similarly with COVID, like, don't wait for the COVID to get back to normal. Moving goalposts. I've said, and that we never went back after 9/11, right? There was industries created around security that are probably hundreds or billions of dollars of revenue for companies. Like, that's not going away. We're not taking all that security out of the airports. Like that's been rooted now. We're not going back. And I feel that COVID did the same thing. It created policies based on this circumstance. It created industries based on this circumstance. And now there's a lot of investment into these circumstances. And even if and when they go away, there's some sort of incentive for them to stay, right? So that going back just might not come, so we've got to endure and navigate through, because we have no control over that. I mean, that's probably my biggest fear of this whole thing, is that we've bent so far that some of these things that are major inconveniences to our economy and our way of life, and even uh, personal rights and freedoms have been limited in a way that I'm fearful that some of them don't go back. And that's not to go all crazy, alt right, like they're stealing our freedoms and taking our guns and all that. I'm just saying, like, be careful how far we stretch, and bend with these types of things, because you don't see policy get reversed a lot, and there's a thing called precedent. Once these precedents start getting set, that's where we start to, we don't go back. So.
Absolutely. And I look at the positive sides of this, like Walmart pickup, yes, I don't have to go into a Walmart ever again if I don't want to. I look at the people are using Zoom, and the technology has improved in our ability to communicate because more people are working from home. My girlfriend got a job working from home, and now I can see her more often. And we're teleworking, which is, enables me to, I'm partial telework, but when I am home, I'm with my kids more, and I can feel like I can get more things done. I feel like I have more control. I enjoy my work a little bit better. There are a lot of advances that, that are happening on the positive. But I guess the thing is that, humans resist change, but change is a part of life, and we need to embrace it and always look for the positive and don't dwell on the negative, because you're going to be disappointed. And when those emotions can boil over, and they just don't serve you. Hardly ever. I think of negative emotions. Like, when was the last time you getting pissed off has really, truly served you?
Right. Man, I hope I don't butcher. There's a great quote. It's like, anger is the wind that blows out the light of the mind, or something like that. It's the a couple other things to hit on before we start to wrap up here. One of the things that I felt a lot of calls for leadership in the book as well, and a couple of things, like one, I felt talked about this aiming at your goal, and and I'll read the quote here and dive into what I thought about this one, which was, it said, don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you're going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and only does so as the unintended side effect of one's dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself, right? And this kind of said two things, right? It spoke to passion, right? Accomplishing our goals and having our passion for our goals, and bringing value, to others or whatever. But the other thing, I thought about, I recently did a training on having your own having a scorecard, and to accomplish our goals, and what I basically was training on what a scorecard is, how it supports your goals, and what leading and lagging indicators are. And you really want to focus on your leading indicators, like your activities that are contributing to the accomplishment of your goals. So this kind of reminded me of that, right? Like, don't aim at don't make all your focus like you're trying to lose 20 pounds. You're trying to lose your COVID-19. You're trying to lose your COVID-19. Like, don't focus on the 19. Focus on your diet. Focus on the workout every day, right? Focus on those things that will result in losing your COVID-19. And I felt this was kind of speaking that a little bit, like, as far as like the hyper focus on, what you're intending, rather than hyper focus on the activity that gets you there. I don't know if that makes sense. Is it?
Yeah, I was actually, right before this podcast, I saw a video of Frankl speaking to college students, and this is like later in his life, and he's a very articulate speaker. I was actually he's very animated, very cool. So I would highly recommend looking him up in some video. But he was taking flying lessons. He's taking flying lessons, and he was talking about he was learning about flying a plane, and you have crosswinds, and the crosswinds, I think, represent like all of the things that happen in life, maybe all the variances of life. And as you in flying, you're trying to go from point A to point B, but because of all the crosswind, which I think is what he was getting at, is like just life, the friction of life, you have to aim over here. Because if you try to fly from point A to point B, you're not going to make it because of the crosswind of life. So aim over here. And that's what pilots do. They have this crabbing effect, I guess, where they're able to maneuver the plane over to get to where they need
Sure.
to
Yeah.
go. But you're not going to have a smooth pattern of flight because you're going to have crosswinds that happen. So yeah, just doing the thing, having the daily habit in health and wellness coaching. A lot of people, I think people get this wrong all the time. I want to lose 20 pounds. And they are so focused on stepping on the scale. They're going to do the exercise until they get to their goal or close to it, and then they stop again.
Yeah.
And if you just made exercise a daily habit and just made that part of your daily suffering, right? Just no, you'll probably lose the 20 pounds and never have to deal with that hell in your life again. Because for so many
Sure.
people, it's this cycle of, I gotta lose weight, I gotta be on a certain size. No, what I tell people is like, hey, go train for a marathon. You'll lose the 20 pounds and you're going to have this incredible experience and the sense of accomplishment. And hopefully, with the intent of making this a lifestyle change, don't just train for the 20-pound loss.
Yeah.
Go do CrossFit. It's a great thing about, I think CrossFit is, I think it's great. I'm not a CrossFitter, but the community aspect of that and being a part of making that daily routine, that's why CrossFit is so successful. Take the mindset of that athlete and make that a part of your daily routine as opposed to aiming for that success of losing 20 pounds because you're not going to make it. But if you have that mindset of the athlete mindset, which is why I still do endurance events. I'm an athlete. I'm a cyclist. I'm an avid endurance athlete. That I always have something to train for, and I'm naturally not, hopefully keep myself in a fit condition. I don't have to worry about stepping on the scale and my pants not fitting, and I don't have that hell in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way I like to teach it is, it's like the report card effect, right? Back to leading and lagging indicators. In your case, you're talking about like the how much you weigh and like how much weight you've lost is a measurement, and a leading indicator is an activity. And I like to kind of use the analogy like the report card, right? By the time you get your report card, your grades are a lagging indicator, because by the time you get the report card, there's not a damn thing you can do about it, right? That's been set. The activity that resulted in what you see in front of you is in the past, and you can't change it anymore. And that's where, like, don't get hyper focused on that measurement. Get hyper focused on the activity that will result in that measurement. So with the report card analogy, if you're doing all your homework, your hours of study are up, right? The activities that result in your goal, right? When you're doing those things, you don't need to think about what the report card is, because you already know, right? Then your lagging indicator, your weight loss, whatever your report card in that analogy, it's not a surprise, right? Because you already know, well, I've been working out every day and I've had a caloric deficit of 500 calories a day for 7 days a week. So 2 weeks from now, when I get on a scale, I can expect to see weight loss. Now, those leading indicators, those activities those become your leverage. So you want to lose more weight? Work out more. You want to lose more weight? Eat less, right? Like, eat better, whatever the case may be. So that's our focus. Don't get so locked in on those lagging indicators thing, because by the time you look, what you should have been focused on, those activities, they're gone. That they're in the past.
Yeah, as I work with clients, we work 90 days at a time. We work quarterly goals in every aspect of life: health and wellness, wealth creation, their relationships, their personal development, and then projects that they have going on in their life. What's the keystone habit that you're going to incorporate? What's that time block that you're going to execute every day to get through this project? Because if you show up and do just actively work in that area, you're going to achieve your goal because you're doing the work. And I think about the Pareto rule, like, 80% of your outputs are going to come from 20% of the input. So what's that 20%? Those are the keystone habits and actions, activities that you need to incorporate every single day.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, and I think a couple key points as we wrap up here. I felt, and we'll wrap up just for the interest of time. It was that, and a couple of big things that I felt like were thematic between here, that were, the importance of taking responsibility, right? Instead of, giving away your responsibility for the outcomes in your life. There's a lot of talk about, what he called responsibleness, right? And that's the very existence, very essence of human existence, which is taking responsibility. And I've heard that theme over and over and over again. Even, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Before he even gets into 7 Habits, he talks about nothing's going to work until you take responsibility, right? People listen to this probably, have read Extreme Ownership. That's all about taking responsibility, and there's so much in this book. And again, written in the 40s by a Holocaust survivor, about the importance of just taking responsibility for your outcome. I thought that was a really, really big theme throughout this book as well.
Absolutely. You got to take responsibility. You're responsible for everything that happens to you and fails to happen to you. And I think about that as leadership. If you got to lead yourself first, you're responsible for everything that happens to you and fails to happen to you. And
yeah. 100%. So yeah, man. So we're deep into this, and I guess we'll wrap up at this point. We could go I could go all day on this one. It's got a lot of depth to it. So Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, recommended read by J. Tiegs, and it's on the Lions Guide reading list. So check it out. You're going to get something out of this, and if nothing else, the experience of what those folks went through at a dire time and circumstance, and what human endurance is really capable of, and what hope and courage and freedom, leadership, responsibility, all the things we talked about today, how they really, serve, our meaning, in life, and taking responsibility for that. So Jay, my man, thanks once again coming on the podcast. Great to have you back on.
I appreciate the time and the great conversation. This was outstanding.
Good to go. Well, we'll do it again next time. We'll find another. Maybe we'll hit your the Slight Edge book next time.
Yeah, we'll hit that one up. That's a great book. Highly recommend.
Cool, man. Good to go. All right, we'll talk soon.